Begin with the question of whether or not the UK is a dictatorship. Now, Alex Creel writes the Thinking Coalition Substack, and his latest article asks exactly that question. Now, the latest reason, or at least the latest reason why the question arises, is that the text of the "What Does an MP Do" page on the UK Parliament website has changed at some point in the last couple of weeks. I'm very pleased to say that Alex Creel joins us now to discuss what has changed and when it changed. Welcome to the programme, Alex. Let me begin by asking you how you came to discover the change in the text, because I don't imagine that this is a page that people look at as a matter of routine.
It's a special kind of weirdo to be tracing the changes in UK Parliament website. But seriously, I was actually looking at explaining to people on Substack how the vote on the decriminalisation of abortion to birth was a breach of the MP's requirements to represent the public and represent their constituents in the Houses of Commons. And when I went to look at the definition to show people, look, this is what they're supposed to do, a completely different text came up. And I sort of checked several times through the archive system as well. And I worked out, yes, exactly, there'd been a very significant change.
Okay, welcome back. Apologies for the technical issue there. I'm not quite sure what happened, but there we go. Anyway, Alex was talking there about the changes to the parliamentary House of Commons website, the Parliament website, and the role of MP. So let's just run through what those changes were. So this is what the text used to say. The UK public elects members of Parliament to represent their interests and concerns in the House of Commons. MPs consider and can propose new laws, as well as raising issues that matter to you in the House. This includes asking government ministers questions about current issues, including those that affect local constituents. Well, this is the text that has been changed to. It now says MPs work both at the UK Parliament and their local constituencies. How and where they work is largely up to them to decide. There is no job description or contract of employment for MPs, nor any rules on how they should balance the competing demands of these two roles. However, MPs must abide by standards of conduct, rules, and conventions. So this is quite a change. And in fact, Alex, all mention of elections and representation have been removed from the page as a whole. And just as bad as that, MPs' constituency work seems to be considered as a second role to whatever they do in Parliament from now on. So what's your take on this? Why have they made this change?
Well, I think the first thing is to recognise that this change has obviously been made very deliberately. These things don't get done by accident. And we've seen in the past, when definitions of things like pandemics and vaccines and all other things change, then sort of bad things tend to happen afterwards. They tend to be sort of weaponized, those new definitions. And my guess is that, as we get more into a sort of dictatorial, top-down system of government, they're just trying to re-educate people into the idea that MPs don't actually represent constituents and the public. They're actually performing almost a technocratic function of some description. I think it's seeding the idea that we're moving to a less democratic system, is my guess.
Well, I mean, I've argued for a long time that the role of MPs has already changed in the sense that rather than representing constituents' views in Parliament, they tend to represent policy views to constituents. And often we see a massive disparity between the comments made in the House of Commons by an MP and what may be said by people on social media or whatnot. There seems to be a disconnect in general, but this is taking it even further by removing the idea of an electorate, of elections from the definition. That seems like a pretty dangerous precedent to be, or certainly a dangerous direction to be heading in.
Yeah, completely agree. And I mean, the reason I stumbled into it is trying to explain how Parliament managed to approve abortion to birth, which is something that, I mean, every survey I've seen says 90+% of the survey respondents oppose. I was trying to explain, well, how is this even remotely possible? And as you said, it's happening more now that the parliamentary vote is, I mean, it's totally at odds with the views of the electorate, and it's very dangerous. And then to find in the meantime, as I was doing that research, that actually their job description had also been changed was very sinister. So I agree, and it's been like that. I think it's getting worse, and it's been like that since politicians start setting their global agendas somewhere outside the UK. As soon as you get into these 2030, 2050, you're already suggesting that democracy in country is not that relevant because the big plans are set elsewhere over multiple election cycles.
And in fact, in the current climate, of course, the war agenda as well, they are taking no notice of whether there is any support for that policy whatsoever.
Yeah, there was quite a famous. I looked at it. There was a sort of non-binding resolution of Parliament to call for peace, which was also supported by the overwhelming majority of people in surveys. And as you said, Parliament voted against that non-binding, kind of meaningless, to be honest, resolution to call for peace in Gaza a couple of years ago. And as you said, you see it all the time in these decisions. The parliamentary action is diametrically opposed to what people want as expressed in surveys and what have you.
No, it's interesting that we've asked the House of Commons media team for a statement about this, but so far they've not responded. That's perhaps not surprising. Of course, we'll update everyone if they do, but are you shocked by the fact they haven't provided a response to this issue yet?
No, not at all. And as we suggested, this is very deliberate. These things are quite serious, and they don't get done by accident. So we're actually intending to write to the Speaker, probably with our usual sort of allies. Hopefully, the Heritage Party and others will join in with that. And we will ask them to, well, we'll sort of more or less require them to replace that new wording with the old wording. And we'll argue that the new wording is completely inappropriate and needs to be deleted. We don't expect a lot of traction with that, but we're just going to keep on pushing that if we can.
Okay, well, look, thank you, Alex. I mean, you're going to be joining us an extra later, but in the meantime, you're talking about We and so on. How do people follow your work?
There's Substack Thinking Coalition, and the website is thinkingcoalition.org. And those are good places to start. Twitter is at ThinkingSlow1.
Thanks for that. Thank you for that, Alex. Now, just before we move on, Vanessa, maybe I could just ask you what your thoughts are on this. Do you have any comment to make on the fact that apparently there's now open acknowledgement that the electorate doesn't count?
Well, I mean, we've been heading into a stealth dictatorship for some time, haven't we? And I think one of the earlier signs for both of us, Mike, was the sudden closure of the access to government spending over 25,000, which we've talked about multiple times. But everything else, from COVID to the wars that they're waging and enabling and facilitating without any consent from the electorate in the UK, it's, we're living under a dictatorship while pointing the finger everywhere else in order to facilitate war and militarism. It's horrible.
Thank you for that. Now,